In 722 BC, the Assyrian Empire under Sargon II conquered the northern kingdom of Israel and did something that empires did to conquered peoples in the ancient world. They deported them. Tens of thousands of Israelites, the 10 northern tribes, were uprooted from their land and scattered across the Assyrian Empire, and they never came back. The Bible records their deportation, but it never records their return. They simply vanished from the pages of Scripture, gone, scattered into the ancient world. And for nearly 3,000 years, people have been asking the same question. Where did they go? Today, we follow that question into Africa, because across the African continent, multiple peoples and nations have maintained for centuries that they are the descendants of those lost tribes. And some of the evidence behind those claims is extraordinary.
Welcome back to Forgotten Tribes and Scrolls. Today we open one of the most fascinating questions in all of biblical history, the lost tribes of Israel. We are going to look at 4 African peoples who claim Israelite descent: the Lemba of Zimbabwe, the Beta Israel of Ethiopia, the Igbo of Nigeria, and the Ashanti of Ghana. We are going to examine the historical evidence, the cultural evidence, and the genetic evidence behind each claim. And we are going to look at what the Bible itself says about the future restoration of the scattered tribes. Let's get in.
1 Kings chapter 12. After the death of Solomon, the United Kingdom of Israel splits. The northern kingdom, 10 tribes, breaks away under Jeroboam. The southern kingdom, Judah and Benjamin, remains under the Davidic dynasty in Jerusalem. The northern kingdom immediately falls into idolatry. It cycles through dynasty after dynasty of corrupt kings, and in 722 BC, Sargon II of Assyria invades. 2 Kings chapter 17 records it plainly. The king of Assyria captured Samaria and deported the Israelites to Assyria. He settled them in Hala, in Gozan on the Habor River, and in towns of the Medes. 10 tribes, deported, scattered, and then silence. The biblical record moves on with the southern kingdom of Judah. The 10 northern tribes disappear from the text. They became known as the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And the question of where they went has fascinated scholars, theologians, and historians ever since.
The first people we need to talk about are the Lemba, a Bantu-speaking people living primarily in Zimbabwe and South Africa. For generations, the Lemba have maintained an oral tradition claiming descent from ancient Israelites who migrated south through Africa over many centuries. Their traditions include practices that are strikingly similar to ancient Israelite law. They do not eat pork. They practice ritual slaughter of animals in a specific manner consistent with kosher law. They observe a day of rest each week. They practice male circumcision. They do not intermarry with surrounding peoples. They have a priestly clan called the Buba, who hold special religious authority. And they carry an object they call the Ngoma Lungundu, which they describe as a sacred drum that their ancestors brought from the ancient world, and which they believe to be a replica or remnant of the Ark of the Covenant. For years, scholars dismissed these claims, until 1999, when geneticist Tudor Parfit and his team conducted DNA testing on the Lemba. And the results were extraordinary. The Lemba carry the Cohen Modal Haplotype, a specific genetic marker found at high frequency among Jewish priestly families, the Kohanim, descendants of Aaron. The Buba priestly clan of the Lemba carry this marker at the same frequency as the Jewish priestly class. The DNA matched the oral tradition. The Lemba are not just claiming Israelite descent. The genetics support it.
The Beta Israel, also known as the Ethiopian Jews, or Falasha, are a Jewish community that has lived in the Ethiopian highlands for centuries. Their origin story is one of the most debated in all of Jewish history. Some traditions say they descend from Menelik, the son of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Others say they descend from one of the lost northern tribes who migrated south through Egypt and into Ethiopia. Others say they are descendants of the tribe of Dan, one of the 10 northern tribes, whose members fled south after the Assyrian conquest. What is undeniable
is their practice. The Beta Israel practice a form of Judaism that predates the Talmud. They observe Torah law. They practice animal sacrifice. They observe the Sabbath and biblical feast days. They have their own priests called Kesem, and their tradition shows no knowledge of post-biblical Jewish developments, the Talmud, the synagogue liturgy, the rabbinical tradition, suggesting their separation from mainstream Judaism happened very early, possibly before the Babylonian exile, which would place their migration to Ethiopia at the time
of or shortly after the Assyrian deportation of the northern tribes in 722 BC. In 1977, the Israeli government officially recognized the Beta Israel as Jews eligible for the law of return. Between 1984 and 1991, over 14,000 Ethiopian Jews were airlifted to Israel in Operations Moses and Solomon. Today, over 150,000 Beta Israel and their descendants live in Israel. The lost tribe came. The Igbo people of southeastern Nigeria represent one of the most discussed and most debated cases of African Israelite heritage. For centuries, Igbo oral tradition has maintained a connection to ancient Israel, and the cultural parallels are remarkable. Traditional Igbo society practiced male circumcision on the 8th day, exactly as prescribed in Genesis chapter 17. They observed a form of the new moon festival. They had a tradition of the Sabbath rest. Their naming conventions show strong similarities to Hebrew naming patterns. Many traditional Igbo names have direct Hebrew cognates or meanings. The Igbo had a priestly class with specific ritual functions. They practiced levirate marriage, the tradition of a man marrying his brother's widow, exactly as prescribed in Deuteronomy chapter 25. They observed purification rituals after childbirth, consistent with Leviticus chapter 12. Olaudah Equiano, the 18th century Igbo writer and abolitionist, himself noted the remarkable similarities between Igbo customs and the customs of ancient Israel in his autobiography written in 1789. The Igbo claim has not achieved the same level of genetic confirmation as the Lemba, but the Ashanti people of Ghana represent yet another fascinating thread in this story. Ashanti oral tradition speaks of migration from the east, from a place called Ashanti, which some researchers have connected to Asante, a word they trace to ancient Semitic roots. The Ashanti observe a 7-day week with a special day of rest. They have naming traditions with striking Hebrew parallels. The name of the Ashanti's supreme deity, Nyame, has been compared by some researchers to the Hebrew divine name. They practice animal sacrifice. They observe dietary restrictions. Their royal court traditions show remarkable parallels to ancient Near Eastern royal traditions. Historian and author Yosef ben Yochanan and others have written about the Ashanti connection to ancient Israel. The evidence here is more cultural and linguistic than genetic, and the scholarly debate is vigorous. But the consistency of these traditions across so many different African peoples, from Zimbabwe to Ethiopia to Nigeria to Ghana, points to something that deserves serious investigation rather than dismissal. Now here is what makes all of this theologically significant. The Bible does not treat the disappearance of the 10 tribes as the end of their story. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 12. God will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the 4 corners of the earth. 4 corners, not from one direction, from everywhere. Ezekiel chapter 37, the vision of the dry bones. God says these bones are the whole house of Israel. And he tells Ezekiel, I will bring you back to the land of Israel. The whole house, not just Judah, not just the tribes that returned from Babylon, the whole house. Amos chapter 9, verse 14 and 15. I will restore the fortunes of my people Israel. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. I will plant Israel in their own land, never again to be uprooted from the land I have given them. The biblical prophets consistently speak of a future restoration that includes the scattered northern tribes.
which means the question of where they went is not just a historical curiosity, it is a prophetic one. If African peoples carry the blood of the lost tribes, then the prophetic restoration of Israel may involve Africa in ways that most of the church has never considered.
The Lemba of Zimbabwe carry the DNA of the Israelite priesthood. The Beta Israel of Ethiopia practiced Torah law for centuries in isolation from the rest of the Jewish world. The Igbo of Nigeria observe cultural practices that mirror ancient Israelite law with extraordinary precision. The Ashanti of Ghana carry oral traditions pointing eastward to ancient Semitic origins. These are not fringe claims made by people looking for a connection. These are ancient traditions maintained across generations in communities that had no contact with each other and no access to modern scholarship. The lost tribes of Israel may not have simply vanished into the ancient world. They may have walked south into Africa and stayed.
Subscribe to Forgotten Tribes and Scrolls. Next episode, the African Church Fathers, the North African theologians who built Christian doctrine: Tertullian, Origen, Augustine, Athanasius, Cyprian. The men whose theological frameworks shaped both Catholic and Protestant Christianity were African, and almost nobody talks about it.